Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. November 4th, the midterm period has passed and we're back into HRM. I understand today we have several people that are interested in presenting. So who would like me to make you the co-professor and share screens?
Professor? Professor, I can hear your voice.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, now I can hear.
Okay, great. So I welcome back to Human Resource Management. We have finished the midway point and everybody should have gone through and presented the research. I hope that you are all aware that in our class folder, there is an Excel marking evaluation rubric to give you an idea of what would be ideal information. You can use this for the research and the grant and the video information you've started, your work so far. Obviously, use that marking rubric for your final presentations. And with the 360-degree feedback that we were talking about last class, I invite all of you to give suggestions to improve this. If you guys can think of some things that you need to evaluate to make each one of you and make yourself better, please contribute to the class. Let me know that information. I'd be generous, give me bonus points for those details. And don't forget that for most of the class, we are hoping that you can contribute to the peer evaluations of everyone. And in the final research presentations, you have to do the peer evaluations with the gradings and comments for people around you. So I understand some people are going to be jumping in to try to be professor again today and manage some of the details, managing the HR. Who are the participants that would like to share the screens and get ready to share some materials today? Can you guys put your little blue hand up? And I'll make you guys. Okay, Minsu, you are ready to. You have a comment, or it's just for you are ready to present some material today?
Just to say that I will be the one sharing the screen for the presentation of my group today.
Okay, you now have the ability to share details. Anybody else? While we start, I'm going to also go through and take a little bit of attendance and make sure things are going okay in the class. So Ali, would you like to, Ali or Julian, would you like to start calling out the names and let's go through the class very quickly, just a few seconds each. I'm not just looking for you're here in class or not, but I want to hear from you if the course content is very clear to you, and if it's not, then we will make a note and we'll contact you to make sure the course content is clarified with you, including the evaluations and the idea of your research project and the grant and the video and the company introductions or the company surveys that you guys might have had. So I want to make sure all of that process is understood in addition to the basic textbook material that we're going through each week. So Ali or Julian, would you be able to help go through the list of students?
Yes. So I think that I'm going through with the order in the students' contributions.
Great.
So the first is the Sheraz Hassan.
Yes.
Okay.
We're waiting for you to comment, Shiraz.
The course content is clear to me, Professor.
And your research project, your articles, your grant has not been discussed in too much detail. You did talk to me before in week 7, week 8, and week 9 during the unofficial period. But are you able to share some information related to your grant or the company you're contacting yet?
No, Professor.
But it's all clear to you, is that correct?
Yes, Professor.
Okay, go ahead. Next, Ali.
Yes. Next students we have Abdullah F. Zavok.
Quickly, I'd like to spend only a few seconds each. Abdullah, are you here? Do you have anything that you need clarification with?
No. So, Jung Kyung John, do you have any feedback or any comment? Or are you really clear about your content, the content of the class?
For the paper, right?
So I
The
think
whole class, everything. We are past the midterm point, so I want to make sure absolutely everything is clear. Research paper, weekly project, the grant, the video requirement, contacting a company, everything. And of course, the class textbooks material that we're going through.
I think things are like quite clear for me.
Kami.
Okay, next. There's no reply. Maybe they're not in class. Let's go through this quickly so we can get into Minsu's presentation.
Okay. Lee Yu Young. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any feedback?
No, it's class material is very clear to me.
Okay, so the next is the Z1 Sol.
Yes, the class is material is clear to me, and I'll be ready by next class.
Okay, good. So Kim.
Yep. Actually, we have prepared grant, and we are really working on the aging society, how affects on Korea and the company corporation. So I think no problem.
Okay. Châu Huynh Hắc. Huynh Hắc Trò. Hello? Oh. Okay, I see him in class, but no comment. Cho Sung Á. Okay. Lee Min So.
Yes. All is clear to me.
Okay, you do, everybody that keeps saying all is clear, you realize that without showing your grant or your articles and some of your work, that I want to be able to give you guys perfect grades as much as possible. But if you haven't shown anything, I can't give the full marks. You don't have to have anything finished yet, but I do expect to see your research paper started, your grant started, your video plans started, etc. Next student.
Manonov Uluget. Manonov. Okay, Lord Ibrahim. John Giazin.
Yes. Yes.
I want to hear your answers. That are you clear from the contents of the class?
Yes.
Yes, but as I can see here, so you not really have don't have any contributions. So please make sure that you still follow up with the class and clear with what you should do on the class.
Okay.
Jeja Bear Muslim Bet.
It's fine. We are working.
Okay. Cho Hye Chang. Cho Hyun Chang.
Me too. I'm working.
Okay. Amuratov Sohabot. Hello? Minso Kim.
Yes, Mingso, it's here. I think the comment that I have been like, I didn't fully understand a few part for the research paper. There was the guide saying that we should mirror one paper, like make changes, but like I didn't understand like fully how it is done to like see a paper and see the structure and try to follow the same structure, because I think it is hard to find a paper that would be with the similar track that we were trying to find. So I was just confused, a little bit confused about that.
Okay, are you aware in the class where you can see the examples of other students' papers from the past? We have shown examples of how students took other published papers and they have replicated details. They've just switched from studies in a different country, focused on Korea, and focused on a specific company. Have you seen those examples?
I saw it before, but I got a little bit confused because I had never done this before, like doing this kind of structure for a paper, because we usually do a paper with our own structure. So that's why I was like just a little bit confused.
Let me, thanks for, that's what we're looking for. Although many other students say they have no questions, I believe that there are quite a lot of people. Let me just share my screen and make sure everybody is aware of this link. You can see at the bottom, bit.ly, how to write papers and grants. So this file is a pretty good file. It goes and it explains the format of a paper and how to start a paper. And this is what the traditional HRM, or all social science paper formats, usually follow. Is this what you're talking about, Minsu Kim?
So like I understand how the structure of the paper has to be, like the title, or like we can see here on the slide. But I was just wondering, what is like mirroring, like following the structure of we have to choose a paper and then follow the same structure. That's what I was asking.
Right. So this is an example I'm showing on the screen now. on the right side, that is a published paper published by some guys in Greece talking about a certain topic. And this is an example of a student's paper talking about almost the exact same topic, but focused on Korea and L'Oreal Cosmetics here in Korea. And so what I mean by copying the same style is they have an abstract, it's similar abstract to this. They have keywords, similar keywords. The introduction, etc. is the same. And they focused most of their work on, there's a very big chart inside the published work showing what all other articles or all research on a certain topic was saying. So they copied the same table, but they just added some new things. Since this was a couple of years old, they added some new articles, and they added some articles specifically for Korea or the company that they were talking about. So as long as you understand this is what experts do, and if you replicate what experts do, that should help you a lot. And the general format is, again, following this. So that's what we were talking about. Does that help clarify details for everybody, especially Min Soo Kim?
Yes, I think it was explained a little bit more.
You want more detail than that?
No. Like it was, I was able to understand what it's supposed to do. I thought that like mirroring the paper, it was supposed to be done in another way, and I didn't know it was just this part of this structure. But I think I got it now. Thank you.
Okay. So far, many students in class, not your group, not you, but many students in class have missed this part as far as referencing. Every time anybody says anything, you should say the first author and the year it was written right next to that sentence or that slide that you're presenting to other people. And then at the very end of your presentation, you have to have all of this detail. So those are some areas where students could be missing quite a bit of marks towards the final. So since we have finished presenting your upgraded material and we've seen many students didn't reference properly, I really appreciate Min Soo Kim for helping the class understand this. This is the general guide. So any last questions or comments from you, Min Soo Kim, that we can help, since it's a guide for the whole class too?
Not so far, no.
Okay, what about this other thing? I think you said that you did start to have some grant information. Have you been able to find a grant and think about how you describe your organization or the people working with you? I'm going to quiz some other people in the class about this as soon as Min Soo Kim has finished commenting.
Is it was that question? Oh, okay. So we are trying to but we did start trying to write the grant before looking for a because there was, I think, like class saying that we don't actually have to apply for the grant. We can just make the form, right, for the class.
Right, you don't need to send it in, but I want to check that people are aware how a grant, first of all, there's several different types of grant. Regular educational grants from the Ministry of Education or straight from universities might be very complicated and a lot of detail, a lot of headache. But when you're working with HRM, usually you're working with big companies, and big companies often have corporate social responsibility grants like this that would have sometimes less than 400 or 500 words are required to apply for a grant. And if you are able to understand this, you should be able to benefit from this type of thing. So the company can give you quite a bit of funds, and you can do your class work being paid from the company, and you can do that to help some other dream employer. So you can actually give a lot of money to this company to solve their creative details, their management details, and give potential solutions and ideas to them. So what I was hoping for is that students talk about the link and being able to get the grant application from this company, the giant multinational company, and be able to use it to help the local companies. Is that sort of clear?
Yep.
Okay, then let's go on to quiz people now. Inside this. Wislemebeck, how are you? You ready for a quiz? On the screen right now, it asks to briefly describe your organization in 100 words. I would like you to guess about what you could say. What are some of the words you could talk about, and what are some of the things you should not talk about? Or what are some maybe bad words that you don't include? And I'll give you a hint. The, T-H-E, or a, or of, those type of words are not important. So I would skip those. They would not be in the 100 words. Do you have any other comments, what you would be able to say?
I have one thing to say about that. So, in my grant application, I use a premier private institutions to represent Keimyung University.
Okay,
education,
that is ideal, and it is more ideal if you can back it up. So in the grant application, if you can embed some international university rankings that shows the ranking of the university and shows that it is big, it's serious, it's very well respected, that would help you. If you, thank you. That's a very good point, Kim Gunsu. By just saying what you think, it's not valuable. By supporting details with evidence, like when you present comments in class, I want to have 1 mark for this, I want to have 5 marks for this in class, you just saying what your idea is going to open the game so people can argue. With the performance management, what we're talking about now is it helps to not only be proactive and show what you're doing, which would help, but have your support. So when you say you're in the premier private university, embed some link in there that shows a non-biased ranking with our university being at a high point in that ranking. Does that make sense? So don't just say I'm great, say you're great, plus provide support and evidence.
But what if the ranking isn't that high? Is it still good to put that ranking on the document?
That's a good point. I wish some other students would be able to comment on this also to guess, but since other people are being quiet, if you are one of the best universities like Oxford, Cambridge, MIT, then any companies that are giving money away, they should trust you immediately. But at the same time, if you're lower in the rankings, and as long as the university didn't start last year, and as long as you have more than 10 people associated with the university, then it's probably going to be respected as a real university. If it's been around for a long time, the grant manager has more faith in you. If it is relatively highly ranked, the grant manager will have higher faith in giving you points. If you are lower in the rank, then and you are still a big organization that's been around for many years, then that grant manager may be happy to help a low-ranked university rise and learn from others. So that low ranking could help influence and get you more of the grant. Does that make sense?
Yep, clear. Thank you.
Everything that you're saying in your research paper and in the grant and in our class contributions, it all has the same thing. You should try to say things and show support for it. Thank you for that. Marissa, you've been quiet so far today. What about you? The next part, what would you be able to say where it says the people that are going to be involved in the project or engaged in the project? What would you use for 100 words?
We already talked about that in our group, and because we have an advantage that we're all 3 different, we are majoring in 3 different things. So we would especially emphasize that we have 3 different like approaches to a topic that we want to apply for the grant to. And also that we are like from 3 different countries.
Now that is good news.
And then
The first thing you just said is kind of bad news. Again, when you're working with HR management, one of the first things we talked about is you should go through what Gunsu Kim was talking about last class, and I hope he talks about it again today, that idea of humanmetrics.com and other rankings that determine your capabilities, your abilities, your personality, the MBTI, Myers-Briggs typology indicator tests. If you know who you are and then you know other people around you, you should be trying to help the communications, help the HR management work, help facilitate information flow for sure. But for your personal development, you should be surrounding yourself with people that are better than you. And so you have indicated, at least I understand, maybe there's 3 people in your group, so you're going to have 3 students listing themselves in the project. And so the problem that I see as a grant manager is you are just a young student. You have no experience, you have or very little experience. You can't show wise usage of funds or even knowledge of research and use of funds. So the grant manager, although he wants to help students, he's going to be very hesitant to actually give funds to students. How can you overcome that? What about Shirazul Hassan? Do you know how you can overcome that? Are you in class? No? Hyun Chang Cho, are you in class?
Yes.
Can you comment on ideas that would help, Marissa?
I don't know.
The idea is you are part of a grant project. You're asking for money from some big multinational company that wants to give it away, but they need to give it to serious organizations. So you should have a long history. You should have some credibility. So the more experience you have on a resume, the better. So by saying, Marissa said there's 3 different people, 3 different countries. The more countries that are involved, the more points you get, the more credibility. So that's a very good thing. But by just saying 1 person, you have 1 student, you have very low credibility. By saying it's 3 students, yes, you have more credibility, but you would also have much more credibility if you partnered with a professor or a dean or the vice president or the president of the university or director of the social welfare research center, whatever it is. If you're partnering with somebody with a very substantial experience, maybe they just need to advise you or supervise some details while you do the work. That is where you would get a lot more points. Does that make sense, Marissa?
yes.
Okay, and the good. So let's get back on to the regular class. So the overall purpose of your project or the purpose of your grant, remember, we're not focused, or you should not be focused on just what is in your mind. You should be trying to write words that are keywords you can get from that grant manager or the foundation office. Try to use words from them. When you're managing HR, it doesn't really matter what your social opinion is or what your bias is. What your job in HR is you're supposed to be helping the managers in the company or in the organization to interact with their staff. So you need to guess what their purpose is and use their words to try to help relay information and ease the communication flow. So several students haven't talked about what your human metrics or MBTI code is yet. So that's kind of a big part. So with the performance management, before we get into Minsu Kim presenting today, I understand Gunsu Kim, are you still available? And do you have your information about JP Morgan and the MBTI and the other tests? Was that you I was talking about?
That wasn't actually me. It was Kyunggon Jung, I believe.
Ah, okay, right.
Good.
Me bad?
Right.
Kyunggan Jung, do you still have that information?
Yes, Professor, I have the information, but we discussed that I will upload that in the Facebook, I guess.
Okay, could you talk to the class about that before we get into the formal presentation, since it is very valuable for everybody in class? If you want, I have the Facebook details, if you want me to go through and show some of that.
It's
You
in the
can share
Facebook.
your screen if you have it. Can you go ahead and share your screen with those details?
I can only share like how do I say, my experience, like how I did it. Oh,
What I was asking for is you interacted with a big company. So tell the class, what is the big company? Most students should understand the name of the company, and then tell the students what the company does. Their normal operation is to do certain things. So just explain that to the students. Your personal code, we don't need to worry about too much. It's just the idea of what is being done in reality. I'm using you as a learning activity for everyone.
so in reality, JP Morgan is like known as the top company in the world, but I actually I applied for the internship there, and what they required is, at first of all, they required a clear resume. It was not even an application or CV, but they only required resume first, and then after you send a resume there, they have a Pymetrics test. This is about the human metrics. It's like testing your MBTI and what kind of personalities you possess. And then I have interviewed with something like ATS. It is called Higher View. So there are like 3 questions given, and I have to answer it to the screen. Then the JP Morgan's HR will review the question and then will contact. But the importance is, I think, the pi metrics and the human metrics, that which is being shown right now, and it's in the Facebook, because yeah, I mean the human metrics test is very, how do I say, it is, I mean, yeah, I mean, it is important for students. Yes.
Can you go ahead and tell the name of the company that you're talking about?
It is JP Morgan.
So everybody in class should be aware JP Morgan is one of the biggest investment banking companies, consulting companies in the world. And when anybody just applies to the company, as our classmate did, they require you to go through, and you need to start with not just showing your resume or your CV, but you need to start by showing them what is your human metrics test code? What is your MBTI, Myers-Briggs Topology Indicator code? And so they are looking at things, oops, things are going kind of slow. Anyway, if you go through this chart, you can see there's a video that explains what is this Pymetrics test and how they use the Myers-Briggs Topology Indicator. And I think several students have missed that when you are working, it is incredibly important. For example, you will have certain communication styles, and there's 16 other different types of communication styles and personality styles and many types of learning styles. And so experts in HR need to know each person has a different learning style or communication style and different abilities. So when you're hiring, if you just hire anybody to do any job, there's 1 in 16 chance that you're going to be a good fit or you're not going to be a good fit. And so if you start by saying exactly what type of code you are, the experts can tell if you are appropriate for this job. And for example, this Pymetrics is even more advanced online assessment where the candidates have 25 minutes just to go through a series of small mini games. And a lot of people will think that the games are not important. For example, it just says to click on your hand participation. How many people can everybody in class please raise your hand, that blue icon? 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000, 6, 1,000. So Marissa is the first one to do it. Shiraz is able to do it. So those people are recorded now by being able to proactively do things, but they took 7 seconds to do it. Everybody else in class took much longer. And that is recorded. It identifies how fast you understand details, how fast you can actually make results, even if it's as small a detail as just clicking on a button. And that's exactly what the test is looking for. Obviously, if you're in a company, how fast staff are able to understand you is important. The faster they understand you, the more efficient you're going to be, the more productive you're going to be. The faster they can actually do things, even as small as just clicking a button, the more productive you're going to be. And so the top companies of the world know that information, manage that information, and go beyond generalizations. Low-level people and people with no experience, they have to stereotype, they have to generalize, they have to guess at what works well. So these are perfect examples of how you go through that. The other thing is, in this chart, one of the things that it's showing in here, I'm showing my MBTI, and my code is the INTJ, which isn't as important, but I also show that I own a company, and in my company, when I'm hiring staff, for example, my real estate company, I don't hire just anybody to be a real estate agent or real estate salesperson. I don't hire anybody just to do the marketing. I don't plan to hire people and then train them if they don't have these certain qualities or characteristics. So this goes through, one of the attachments here goes through and explains, as you can see here, in a real estate job, for example, the ESTP personality type is more likely to persuade other people and jump into action and solve problems quickly. That's their personality style. They like to convince other people. They like to do things proactively. They like to jump in and try new things. That pretty much perfectly describes an active salesperson. And it also says they prefer being active while in the company of others. And they like to live in the moment, doing things, not just waiting and watching other people doing things, even when there's an element of risk. So this ESTP, if you are going for a sales job or sometimes marketing job, saying this personality may get a completely different reaction from a company. If Kyunggon, if you are applying for some sales role in JP Morgan and you say your personality style is the ESTP, they would probably be much more interested in talking with you. That type of thing is pretty important. Next, the idea of describing it is quite important. There's another one, the ISTJ personality might be more appropriate for jobs that are developing and managing records, like whether it's financial records in JP Morgan or databases or websites or Flickr, whatever. Going through the staff management by objective records is quite important. ISTJ personalities, they are linked to a fondness for doing quiet, detail-oriented work behind the scenes. So they're not going to be top pick for sales. They're not going to be top pick for doing the public relations, but they can manage the databases. They can manage the accounting. They can manage the financial details. These people may like taking on practical jobs that require you to be loyal, reliable, organized. Obviously, somebody that's loyal and reliable would be more appropriate managing money or managing the evaluation of everybody else than somebody that takes a lot more risk. So these are two examples. And Kun Jung-jung's his interview and discussions with one of the world's biggest companies just recently over the break shows how HRM details impact you in daily life. So we are going to be talking about performance management systems. This is a live example. So thank you for that. Let's go on, and you guys can see that in the Facebook group anytime. Marissa, you have your hand up. Do you have another comment?
I actually have a question concerning that, because you mentioned like the high importance, and I also get that, but why do like smaller companies don't use it like as the first step when they in the hiring process? Because it's also less costly, isn't it?
Inexperience. I shouldn't say stupidity. Everybody should know this. All of you students, you should know this. You should know what is your MBTI and what is my MBTI. Do you know what your MBTI is, Marissa? That means you don't know your own communication style. For example, anybody in class, do you know mine, even though I showed you at the beginning of the semester and I just talked about it this morning? By knowing the key styles of other people, it definitely helps you. And so the most successful companies use it. Maybe we can look backwards and say they use it to become successful. And so it's not that small companies should not use it. Every company, every person should use it. Small companies definitely should use it. It's just that a lot of people don't have the experience. They don't have the expertise. They don't know that they should use it yet. That's why they're not using it. Does that clarify details, Marissa? Including you, how you should know your own and you should know me?
Yes.
So my personality style, I have no idea what I can talk about the sports game scores last night. I have, even though yesterday, November 3rd, is important for the whole world to know with the U.S. Election, I don't follow the numbers and stuff like that. I don't follow politics. I don't follow sports too much. I follow development in other areas. And I get straight to the point. I don't usually chit chat. So by knowing that, it helps interact with me. So it's same thing with small companies. Any other people before Minsu Kim starts presenting her project? And I think Marissa and Felix, you guys are all part of the same group. Go ahead, Marissa. Go ahead, Minsu. Thank you.
Is it my screen visible?
Your screen is viewable and I can hear you. I would, again, I encourage every one of you, just like we did with that Pyrex test, I forget the name of it, but that test simply clicks how fast people do things or they react and respond. And I recall that I have seen other students showing PPT in the past. And I was saying that since we are working online and you're going to be making a report that can go out to the world, no, not too many people out in the world care about your student numbers. So here, what would be better than just listing your student number would be
Just want to say that's on the next page.
Good. If you have it on the next page, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have your emails on the next page, great. Also using professionally a LinkedIn page. Wow, high graphics, great graphics. That would be good for your video too. The idea of using your LinkedIn profile page is better than using your Facebook page because Facebook is chit-chatty, what you do at drunk parties. LinkedIn is better for getting consulting jobs, getting any jobs. Make sure your LinkedIn profile is professional. Also be aware with that ATS and HR management, performance management systems, that when you apply to work with big companies, the big companies will check your LinkedIn. They will check your Facebook. If you say anything bad about other companies, that will impact whether you're hired or not. Some people say that's privacy, you're not supposed to do that. Well, I'm telling you the reality. I have seen it with universities. I've seen it with top number companies. I'm not going to name company names, but there are a lot of companies that will check your pictures and comments, seeing if you stopped working for a company, or you've had problems with your manager. Do you say bad things about them, or are you focused on solutions? All of that information is tracked nowadays. So please make sure you have a very good LinkedIn profile and use that when you're promoting yourself online. Sorry, somebody else in class would help Minsu, would help Felix, would help Marissa if other students don't just listen quietly. If the other students give comments for improvement, that would help them make a better presentation at the end of term. And it might help you have just a better score presenting overall. So go ahead, group.
Okay, then I will start. At first, I want to present my team members. That's one times Minsu Kim. She's studying international relations and business. Then Marissa Mutzke. She's studying economics and business administration. And myself, I study industrial engineering. Just want to give you a short content, what we're talking about today. Just make it short. First, like a little introduction, then the definition, short usage analysis, then the methods, some company examples from Marissa, and then the short quiz. At first, an introduction, we have a video for you. I think we can do it in the time. Yeah, I think should be in time that we finish on time. As if it doesn't work, I can just tell you the main reasons from the introduction, or does it work? Then I check.
Are you guys able to hear the video?
No, I can't hear it.
Okay, then I will just maybe summarize what's inside of the video. It just describes performance management like as a set of process or systems that's aimed to the development of foreign employees so they can do the job at best as they can and to their ability, but that's not aimed to improving like all the skills. Like it doesn't have them parking. If they park better, that doesn't have the company, so they just try to improve the skills that help them doing the job better. Also, the process that aims to the individual goals of groups, like the individual goal of the person who's working, align them with the goal of the company, of the group, so they all have the right direction and ambition and a vision to work for. It's also a strategic and formal process, and also it's periodic, objective, and it's mostly a systematic process. Can you make the next slide, please? So normally I would just, if the video worked, tell you more about that. The performance management is like a continuous process, and it's improving the performance by setting individual and team goals which are aligned to the strategic goal of the organization. Planning performance to achieve the goals. I don't want to read that, you can read that all. So that's like a cited from Michael Armstrong. The main points are really that it's a continuous process, and it's like for improving their performance by setting the individual goals. That's the most important thing about the definition of performance management. Then there are like two different approaches to measure the performance. Mostly it's behavior or result-oriented approach. And normally you just plan, act, track, review, and then start again from the front and continue it on and on. Never stop that. Then also have like the extra role behavior. That's more like if you go outside of your role description of your job and do more than usual. Then the performance analysis. There are some general purposes of that. Like one time it's like lensity. It's when a manager is more lentient when rating employees. That's actually more like human stuff because it's just know that objective rating is difficult for human being because humans are normally every time very subjective. Also like central tendency that like in a group performance, the manager is more like used to just say it's normal, middle performance. Also the regency, that's like evaluation based on the work performed in the period before the evaluation. So if you did something very good before the evaluation, it's in the back or in the memory of the person who rates you. So it's also called, it's a kind of effect that's called primary recency effect. That's a physiological human effect. The same is also for the halo effect. It rates the evolution and is influenced also by pure judgment or single prominent characteristics like the appearance, or also can be the race, also the gender. Then that's all summarized like in general errors also. And like I said before, it's like the person preferences, their prejudgment and bias, and also the first impression of a person can be very hard influence the performance analysis appraisal. But there are there's some methods to overcome the errors, mostly just do more research, get more data, also just train the rater, and also refine in the design of the appraisal method. So use the right appraisal method. And also the behavior and short rating scales should be adapted. Then I come to the usage analysis, so that we just make it short. The pros are normal, like you have can have then a conversation with your employees, so you only have necessary conversation with people who don't perform well, and don't spend time with people who perform good. And also it can target the staff development, so you can develop the staff as you want. Moreover, it's also encourage the staff to work on themselves and do better work, because it's also good for them that they see they can perform well, and if you focus on the positive and like a gently course correcting it, then the behavior gets better from the staff. Also, rewards for the staff is good if they did a good job. So you have to also build like a good compensation structure. That's also a topic of us. Also, you can identify the underperformers who don't perform very well, and so sometimes you just get rid of it because they don't help you in the company. And also, if you can document all the stuff you collect that about the employees. So if you have like a manager change, they can just see the data and see how the persons perform. Also, you can help the employee to grow so they can reach their full potential and feel self-confident about what they're doing and are confident with their job. The cons are like they're a little bit time-consuming. It's very complex. If you don't use it well, you can also discourage your staff because they don't hear very, they don't feel lucky about if you just say you did this wrong, you did this wrong. You have also tell them that you did this right, you did a good job, but maybe try this better. So if you don't do it right, you also send the staff inconsistent message, and they get very annoyed about that, and also can have some biases. And you also have to watch like the legal issues. So if you're allowed legally to collect this data, like in some states, it's not allowed to watch your staff work. And then Minsu gonna continue.
So hi, I'm Min So, and now I will explain about the methods of performance management system. But I actually find out why the YouTube video was not working. So I'm gonna fix it right now and show the video for you guys because it's a really interesting video. Mm. Can you see the YouTube right now, right? Let's just see if you guys can. Are you guys able to listen to the?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Hi, today's bite is all about performance management, what it is, why it is important, and most importantly, how to apply it to your organization. Stay tuned. Let's proceed by answering the following question. What is performance management? Performance management is a set of processes and systems aimed at developing an employee so they perform their job to the best of their ability. Performance management is not aimed at improving all skills. In fact, good performance management focuses on improving only those skills that help an employee perform their job better. This means that it is about the strategic alignment of one's work to the team and organizational goals. Because performance management is a process that aims to align individual goals with group and organizational goals, it is a strategic and formal process. This means that key individual career decisions like bonuses, promotions, and dismissals are all linked to this process. Performance management is a periodic, systematic, and objective process. What is the goal of performance management? In essence, performance management is about measuring and improving the contribution of the employee to the organization. A famous quote attributed to Peter Drucker is that if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. Or alternatively, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. Performance management is about measuring, managing, and improving the contribution of the individual to the organization. How do you do performance management? There are many ways to conduct performance management. In literature, there are two approaches when it comes to performance evaluation. One, the behavioral approach. Employees are evaluated based on their behaviors and efforts. Behaviors are identified and evaluated. This approach is suitable for giving detailed feedback on behaviors and by mapping desirable future behaviors. This approach fits when individual results are hard to measure. Examples include individual players in a team, support staff, and oftentimes HR professionals. 2. The result-oriented approach. In this approach, employees are evaluated based on objectively measured results. The focus is not on the input but output, both in terms of quality and quantity. This approach is suitable when there are multiple ways to do the job. In this case, the end result is key, not how the job was done. Examples include call center employees who have specific success metrics, as well as sales professionals. Another example is the evaluation of lawyers and accountants as they keep meticulous track of their billable hours using 6-minute intervals. A second element to focus on is extra role behavior. These are the behaviors that go beyond the job description. For more information about these, check our employee performance review template article, which you can find in the video description. That's it for today's bite, in which you've learned what performance management and its purpose are, as well as how to approach it in your organization. If you're
Thank you for that.
Okay, so now I'm going to describe the methods of performance management system. So there are 10 possible ways to evaluate the employees in a company on the performance appraisal method. So to start with the management by objectives. So this method is usually used with professionals and managerial employees, and this method is also known as management by results, performance management, results management, and others. This method consists of establishing clear and precisely defined statement of objectives for the work to be done by an employee, develop an action plan indicating how these objectives will be achieved, and the step number 3 would be allowing the employee to implement the action plan. Step 4, measuring the objective achievement. Step 5, taking corrective action when necessary. And step 6, establish new objectives for the future. But when implementing this method, there are some requirements to be followed in order to have a successful system. So the requirements include that it needs to have some the objectives need to be quantifiable and measurable. It also have to be some challenging objectives, because if it's usually easy goals to achieve, there's no much work harder, like they don't feel more motivated to work harder. It needs to have clear, concise, and ambiguous language. It is important for the employees to participate in this objective setting process. This because when the manager, when people are setting this goal, sometimes it can be unrealistic goals that they do not understand exactly how the employee can achieve that kind of goal. So it's necessary for the employee to be engaged on it, because they will have a better idea on what kind of goals would be are realistic for the job. And also for the MBO objectives, an action plan must serve as a basis for regular discussions. There are a few advantages for this method that can be used on a company. So employees feel more motivated for achievable goals, and it aligns employees' burden, strengths, skills, and experience. And through this method, it helps increase the communication between management and employees. However, some disadvantages of this method is that sometimes can be too focused on goals, drift the focus on the culture conduct and on the areas for involvement and contribution in the company. And sometimes it can also be a strain on employees for the time frame, because sometimes the objectives can be set to be done for a really short period, which can be unrealistic for the employee. So the next is the multi-rater assessment, so this method is also called 360-degree feedback. So in this system, the managers, peers, customers, suppliers, and the people, they will complete a questionnaire about the employee who is being evaluated. But in this case, the employee who is being evaluated by others will also answer a questionnaire about his or her own performance. So in this method, it's a 360-degree, because the employee will be able to see the feedback from others, and also see, because sometimes people have different perspectives. Even though I feel like I did a good job, some other people might have a different perspective on it and might have some comments. So through this system, the employee is able to see the results and see how he perceived his own job and how others perceived how he did his job. The advantage of this system is that it provides a broad perspective on employees, because they are seeing the opinions of others. And some disadvantage is that sometimes the other people evaluating, they might focus on the weakness of the employee's performance rather than on strong traits. The third one is the graphics rating scale. So in this scale, they will rate an employee of factors such as quantity of work, dependability, job knowledge, attendance, accuracy of work, and cooperativeness. The problem with this approach is that subjectivity can occur, and the questions for this system sometimes focus on behavioral traits and it's not specific enough for some other jobs when it's necessary. And moreover, sometimes due to different background, experience, and personality, evaluators the evaluators might not be able to interpret the written descriptions in the same manner as the others. There's the behaviorally anchored rating scale. So it was designed to assess behaviors required to successfully perform a job and focus on functional behaviors demonstrating during the job. The job dimensions is the broad categories of duties and responsibilities of work. And several job dimensions and separate skills must be developed. So there are 3 different steps that must be followed in order to have a successful system. So number 1 is that managers and job incumbents that identify the relevant job dimension for the job. 2, managers and top increments write behavioral anchors for each dimension and reach a consensus concerning the scale values to be used and the grouping of anchor statements for each value. So here's an example for this job, for this system. So here on the left side will be specifying the categories of performance, the scales values, and on the right side, the anchors are specifying the written statements of actual behaviors shown in the work that will indicate the level of performance of the employee. Some advantages of this system is that it's developed through the active participation of both managers and top incumbents. The anchors are developed from the observations and experience of employees who actually performed the job. And the different thing about this system is that can be used to provide specific feedback and focus on the desired behaviors that are important to complete a task and or perform a specific job. However, some disadvantage of this system is that it takes time and commitment to develop an effective rating. And the other turn down is that it's necessary to have separate forms for each position and job in the company. Now the critical incident appraisal. So it requires evaluator to keep a written record of incidents as they occur and involve jobs behavior that illustrate both satisfactory and unsatisfactory performance of the employee being rated. And incidents provide basis for evaluating performance and provide feedback. Some advantage of this method is that it can work well if the manager has the proper training to record the incidents, and it works well when specific jobs vary greatly from week to week, so it's not always the same work. And some advantage of this method is that the rater is required to write down the incidents regularly, and there might be some friction between the manager and employees. And in this method, like the previous one before, there's had the tendency of the raters recording only the negative incidents rather than the positive ones of the employee. So there is also the essay appraisal method. So in this method, it's done through a written statement of the employee performance. It requires evaluation, describe on employee's performance in a written narrative form. So the structures provide as the topic to be covered. This can be a trait method or behavior method, depending on how the manager writes the essay. However, a few advantages of this method is that this technique is normally used with a combination of graphic rating scale, because the rater can represent the scale in more detail, and also giving an explanation for his rating provides a good deal of information about the employee. However, its advantage of this method is that it can be long and the content will vary from each rater. It takes a lot of time, and due to the different writing skills from the evaluators, the details of the evaluation might be different. So there's also the checklist. So in this method, the rater answers with just yes or no questions regarding the behavior or the employee. The advantage of this system is that it's helpful in evaluating employee job performance and evaluating the degree of uniformity of the rater by giving him two similar questions in a different matter. And one disadvantage are that it might be time consuming to assemble, as the question meaning can be different for each. The interpretation of the questions can be different for depending on the rater. There's also the forced choice rating. So in this rating, the rater ranks a set of statements describing how an employee carries out the duties and responsiveness of the job. So the statements are going to be weighted, and the rater generally does not know the weights. And this method is usually used because it attempts to eliminate evaluator bias by forcing the rater to rank statements. They're seemingly not unrelated. However, a turn down of this system is that it might irritate the raters because they don't know about the weights of the questions, and it might be difficult to interpret and communicate the results to the other employees. There is now the ranking method. So the ranking method is a system where the performance of an employee is going to be ranked relative to the others, so compared to the other employees. And there are three different ways to do it. There's the alternation ranking, the paired comparison ranking, and the forced distribution. So the alternation ranking, in this method, the rater will put the names of the employees on the left side, and then in this order, the person will choose the person who it believes that is the most valuable. So for example, in this case, it would be the employee named Sophia. So the rater would cross the name Sophia, and put the name on the top of the list on the right side. And then the evaluator will choose the one who he or she believes is the least valuable, to cross the name and put on the down list. So at the end, the evaluator will have a ranking list from the best to the worst. On the pair comparison ranking, the evaluator will first compare the first employee of the list with the second, and put a check besides the name on the employee he or she believes is the best. So for example, between Serena and Jackson, the employee thinks the Serena is better. And then it will compare from Serena to Emily, and then it still believes that Emily is the best. And then so on. So the system will keep evaluating one by one. And then on the next step, the evaluator will compare from Jackson to the other employees. In this way, the evaluator is possible to compare all the employees to each one. And then at the end, the employee with the most check besides their name is considered to be the most valuable. So then there will be a list made. So in this case would be Sophia, then Serena and Jackson, and so on. There's also the forced distribution, which requires the rater to compare the performance of employees and place a certain percentage of employees at different performance levels. It will result in a bell-shaped graph, and it will be divided with 20% does not meet the expectation, 60% meet the expectation, and 6 exceeds the expectations. The work standard, now there's the work standards approach, which is the most used for production employees. It is setting a standard or expectation level on output and compare the level of employee standard. It forms a goal setting for the employee. However, an advantage of this method is that it's based on highly objective factors, and its advantage is that it lacks on comparability of standards for different job categories. And now Marissa will continue.
I think we have to split it up, no? For next week, for next week.
Yes, we only have 1 minute left. Thanks for that comment. Would you like to stop here and continue next week? Is there, okay. So I will wrap up. Thank you very much for the presentation. We have heard about a lot of material, but I see factually a lot of material is not fully understood because it's not fully implemented yet. Minsu, Marissa is about to start, but Felix, you have already been presenting a lot of information that's very good right now. For example, you talked about MBO, 360-degree feedback. We must all know those, and stretch targets, goal setting, long and short-term Q4 goal and scheduling. I have started to talk about that in class. Some students may not realize the importance of it, and it's being discussed a little bit here. Maybe next class, Marissa might talk a little bit about it. Minsu was talking about the checklist and forced choice rating, forced distributions, etc. There are many performance evaluation systems. It's good to try to learn several, or at least one, very well. All of you need to understand that, because it impacts you, not just for your future job, but today in class. Our class is set up for it, like we talked about you need to understand for top results who you are, what is your culture, and how can you communicate with other people. What that means is know your MBTI score and how you can communicate with other people around you. Same thing for the Pyrex, and we've discussed that in the Facebook group. Make sure you check that. The issues have been taught very, very well. It's now a challenge to make sure everything that Felix, Marissa, and Minsu have been saying is fully understood by all other people in this group. For example, you have been given evaluation systems and you have the ability to evaluate not only staff. Much of your presentation today was talking about how one manager might evaluate some people underneath them. But you know, obviously with 360-degree feedback, that means everybody in the class, everybody in the company, everybody in the department evaluates each other person. That's the way our class is set up. But how many of you have been thinking, how many people have you evaluated clearly to the other presenter? And have you shown that to the group? Because you get evaluated on that. You get points. I'm trying to give points away for that. So practice now in class where I'm very easy and generous, realizing that once you get into serious companies, for example, Felix said he was working with high-tech, maybe top secret companies, and those companies probably start and they will have managers trained to set the evaluation bar equivalent to almost an Olympic athlete or a top performer. So the average person, even if you work relatively hard, you're expected to get an evaluation of could do better at the end. And so in our class, I'm giving points away. I believe the first week, what was it, Felix gave, or Gunsu Kim gave some other group 4 points when the normal was 1, and I allowed that. So learn that, practice doing it now, because when you get into a company where people are paying details for it, they're not going to be generous. And if you're not doing this system and not active in the system now, imagine how that impacts a company. The company usually manages all the time. And if you're a new employee and you start your job and you don't notice that you can get points for evaluating yourself or doing certain things, and months go by, very soon you're going to be at the end of the year where the performance bonuses are given out or the grades are given out. And if you are not following that, you're going to miss a lot of these points. And knowing that company managers will say that you're supposed to be a star performer to get maximum points. So, all right, we finished. Our class time is up. Thank you very much, Minsu, Marissa, Felix, and Kyunggun Jung and Kim Gun-soo for talking about all of these details today. Hopefully everybody is going to be able to understand details going forward. Any other questions before we end the class today? You do realize again that there are quizzes we should be doing next time when Marissa is going to be presenting the rest of her presentation. Make sure to reschedule it, but also make sure you understand that although Ali is your professor helping you understand details and she's helping record a lot, the official record of marks and the official scheduling of activities is the basic Excel file. And Minsu, Marissa, Felix, you have been very proactive, but so far your weekly activity was entered in on, what was it, Hyundai at the beginning of the semester, and your current PPT is not clearly shared on that Excel file with other people. So please make sure your PPT is shared with everybody else in the main Excel file, and make sure you guys give yourselves points, and the links that you share will be support for that. And seriously, try to get feedback, the 360-degree feedback from every other classmate. and realize that's where you're going to be able to upgrade and get your perfect marks. If you don't, it's a lot harder to get your perfect marks. Thanks, guys. You have comments, Minsu?
I had some trouble since Monday. I was trying to upload the link on the Excel file on the Excel file, but I was not able to. So then I added as a comment. That's why I think it might not be showing. So just to make sure, I sent the link separately to Ellie yesterday.
Perfect. Make sure you realize what you just said is worth an extra point. Obviously, you presented a weekly topic that's worth up to 10 points. You're talking about something extra, so that's worth additional points. Ali probably understands. Are you aware that there's at least 2 different Excel files? There's the class schedule file that is in your folder, and then Ali has another one, which is the student contributions file. So
I think the trouble that I have, it says that I was not granted access to the to make change to the file on the schedule one where we usually put the links. So that's why I had trouble, and I was only able to put comments on the file.
So
yes,
I just want to
actually,
explain here. This is the student contributions file. This one is different. This is the informal, the extra one just to help you guys. And this file here, which is the HRM info from September on, this one is completely open to you guys. It is in
Actually, it was this file that I was not able to make changes, yes, since Monday.
Okay, maybe you're using a public link that prevents other people from changing. But if you go into our class drive, where you go through week 1, week 2, week 3, you can see at the bottom here, this is the file. So you have full access to modify this file. So are you using this way to access the file, or are you going through a link that is just for public use?
I was using the link that was on the CTL, one of the first things that was uploaded.
Right, but anybody can go into CTL. And if anybody can go into it, we don't want strangers to modify details. So only the class is allowed in this class folder. So you can see it through CTL, but the main file is in our HRM file. So Ali will help you with it, but thank you very much for that.
Yeah, actually, I already see your comment and put your comment on the Excel file already with the link. And yesterday I already sent you the link for students to answer the quiz.
Yes, I have the link that I will be sharing next class.
Yeah.
Or I can share it before the
class. Yes, make sure any links to information is shared with the full class as early as possible. So even your link to your quiz can be given to students today, even if we're only going to evaluate them next class. Again, I am being generous. I'm allowing students to get the highest marks possible. Hopefully it's going to help you learn. So share and ask as many questions as you can. Thank you very much for your presentation today. It was great.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Have a good day, guys.
Thank you. See you.
And Kyunggon Jong, again, I thank you very much for your real live example of these details.